Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, unboxing time is here. Hello everybody, thank you for joining me today. I do truly appreciate it. I've got a little video I want to cover about a little book called a Chapbook. Ever hear of it? Anyway, this is, you ever heard of a company called Levidian Publications? If not, by all means, hear of them. One of the greatest publishers out there. One of the best publishers walking God's green earth. They make great limited edition books. Brian James Freeman is the owner, operator, master, businessman, whatever, publisher. And he does great work. He also has a Patreon for patrons. You pay money every month, and as a reward you get certain things. And I'm actually a Patreon patron subscriber, and I don't know, I think it's called the Brian James Freeman Limited Editions tier that I am on. $200 a year keeps me in line, and I get stuff in the mail. Sometimes I don't know when. He does keep people up to date, but I don't always pay attention. I'll read the emails and say, oh, cool. And then I'll forget about stuff and don't always know when it's going to show up. But I got something that did show up in the mailbox from the friendly neighborhood mail lady in conjunction with Brian James Freeman, Levidian Publications, and Patreon hooked the brother up. And it's here in the mailbox. And it's something that sounds neat. A while back at some point, I got a chapbook through this Patreon deal. Brian James Freeman Patreon, and it featured alternate covers of Stephen King books. I think that's what it was, and had François Vaillancourt artwork, who is one of my very favorite illustrators who ever lived. There are some good ones out there, and François I know is one. When I see his name attached to something, I automatically know I'm going to like it. It's going to be good. No question about it. And the only other question is it an author that I like or a book that I want or something like that? But François is fabulous. And this one is called, dun dun dun, are you ready for this? Lost or Found in Translation. And one might say, what does that mean, lost or found in translation? But in a nutshell, the way I gather by reading on the interwebs, Bev Vincent, a leading Stephen King scholar, writes a lot of stuff about Stephen King's work and Stephen King stuff. Bev Vincent has put together a little something, an essay about alternate titles for Stephen King books and foreign publications. You can only imagine how you might look at a picture that represents a story, how that picture might be translated in a foreign language into something that sounds completely different, or a U.S. title, how that might be translated into something that sounds very strange and sounds like a very neat project. So I'm glad I'm on board. I'm glad I got one in the mailbox, and I'm going to open it up and show you what it's all about with these chapbooks from Brian James Freeman. They are typically in this stiff, rigid cardboard envelope, typically what we're going to get. And a chapbook, in this case, is a soft cover, a thin soft cover book. And look, when I ripped it, I didn't actually rip it right. Can't even rip a package. But anyway, it's a soft covered chapbook, so it's flexible. Typically, they've got well, I'll just show you how the binding works. But in here, all kind of stuff. So there's the box. I think it's empty. Nothing fell out. But there are postcards featuring François Vaillancourt's artwork from this story, just packaged slightly separately. We'll show you those in a minute. But as typical with these Levidian, turn it upside up, Levidian Publications chapbooks, they come in an envelope that's individually designed for the story. So there you see Lost or Found in Translation by Bev Vincent. But anyway, they're typically packaged like this, which is neat. I can put the chapbook back in the paper envelope, back in the plastic envelope, and put it on the shelf where it's well protected. A neat way to keep your stuff. But there it is out of the plastic. You see this kind of shiny. You can see, well, can you see? I say you can see. Look at there, almost a metallic sheen to it. The envelopes are cool, and it feels thicker than I expect it to be. So it's a relatively stout chapbook, and it's pretty thick for a chapbook. But this type, they come in many different fashions and forms. Look at that cover. I wonder who that is. Who's that guy? Who's that guy? By Bev Vincent, Stephen King. And it is a conglomeration, I'll show you up close, of foreign languages. And I'm assuming those will all be alternate titles for foreign publications. You can see how that adds up to be the design of Stephen King's face. A nice, neat concept there. But this type of chapbook, what does they call? Perfect bound is what they call it. Essentially, the wrapper or the cover wraps all the way around, folded tightly on the corners, and the book block is glued in to the spine. Other chapbooks might be stapled, where they lay it flat, staple it, fold it over, or tied, sewn. Some of the quality ones also are sewn. They'll lay it flat and they'll have thread that goes through, and then they're sewn together. So there's a variety of types. There's hardcover chapbooks, all sorts. But this is how Brian James Freeman does it. Perfect bound, and you can see the end pages there and our limitation page. Now, he did say that on the chapbooks, the numbering would be done differently. And this one here says this special signed edition is limited to 500 copies. It's signed indeed by Bev Vincent and François Vaillancourt. And François seems like he has a pretty good deal or pretty good relationship with Levidian Publications. I think they're keeping him busy, which is good. Fellas got to eat. Fellas got to make the moolah. Got to make the money. And so, seems good. I'm glad François is getting to work, getting to make a living, and getting to put out some great work for us all to see. But I'll kind of flip through here a little bit and show you what all is included in the chapbook. And then I'll also show you, so Carrie, lost in translation, since the title of the character name, it should be no surprise that many translated editions are also called Carrie or something that sounds like Carrie. However, there are exceptions. In Chinese, the book is called Carrie the Witch, and in Hungarian, it's called The Witch Girl. So that's just a sampling of what we're talking about here. A historical, interesting concept and something to read. So there is an alternative cover and the translation there. And it looks like there's quite a few books included. Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot. What else might they call it? They might call it Brennan Muir Salem. Whatever that means, I do not know. But one of the alternatives there is The Vampire Hour, Possessed City, City of Horrors, and Cursed Town. So you can see how interesting this is. And look at there. I love that picture. It does look good. I love the colors. Great stuff. François is just fabulous. Hotel of Death, and Visions, Psychic and Visions. So all sorts of translations there. What else? Rage. Look at Rage. What else we got in hell? Night Shift. So not every book has its own illustration. So many illustrations. How could François possibly cover them all? But look there, just Firestarter. What do they call Firestarter? The Fire Child, Fireborn, the Living Fire. In Hebrew, it's Foreign Fire. In Thai, it is Burn It Up. Now that's cool. Burn It Up. Nice. I like that one. What else? Cycle of the Werewolf. Cycle of the Werewolf is a short novelette, I guess. Novella. It's really short. But it's the basis for me growing up as a child and still sentimentally as an adult. My favorite werewolf film. And that's Silver Bullet. Reading the story, it's a cycle. Each part is 1 month in the year. And that movie scared me as a kid. And then reading it as an adult, it felt so cool. Seeing it was similar. Not exactly the same, but similar. But anyway, Cycle of the Werewolf is one of my sentimental favorites of Stephen King's, mostly because of my childhood. Thinner, look at there, Thinner. So a neat chapbook, man, a neat concept, and you can't just go out and publish Stephen King chapbooks willy-nilly and stuff like that, unless you're really good friends with Stephen King, I guess. But to have King adjacent stuff and still have interesting concepts, that's a neat trick. And Levidian Publications, Brian James Freeman, François Vaillancourt, they pulled it off. A really neat concept, one that you got to read. That one's Under the Dome. So what else do they call it? Trapped. In German they call it The Arena. Hebrew, it is Under the Transparent Dome. And in Mongolian, it's a city in a shell. So the translations can be kind of strange or kind of off, and they can be pretty specific as well, or accurate. And then here we go, Revival. I do dig it. The artwork is so great in these chapbooks that we get from from Brian James Freeman, but especially the François Vaillancourt. And then there's the end. We got other ones like Later, Billy Summers. Billy Summers is also called The Last Assassin in Vietnamese. Holly, just Holly, simply Holly. You Like It Darker. They also say You Want It Darker. What else? Anyway, great, interesting, and glad to have it. And then there it is. Now I wanted to show you real quick, we get postcards of this artwork. And I'm assuming we saw, I don't know, how many illustrations was that, 10 or 12? I'm not sure. But there are also included in here postcards with the illustrations on them. And they've done this before, and it's really cool deal, a cool additional feature to the Patreon gift bonus, whatever you call it, the Patreon tier rewards. And so you just on the back, you can look and see flat out, it is a postcard. You can put a stamp on this thing, a note, an address. Hey, just thinking of you. Send you a Stephen King in a foreign language that you won't know, but look at this cool picture here. And I like it. I doubt a whole lot of people will be mailing these. More than likely, collectors will be collecting, putting them on a shelf, saving them for future enjoyment. But there we go. That's just some examples of them, and great stuff. So Brian James Freeman's Patreon. When it comes to Patreon, as far as paying money on Patreon, I don't do a whole bunch of them. I mean, the guy's got to know his limitations. But there's a couple where I just let it donate, pledge, and let it ride, and stuff comes in the mail. And Brian James Freeman's Patreon is one of them that I would recommend. I would recommend it on a, I don't want to say investment side, but are you paying money and you getting what you pay for? I'd say Brian James Freeman's Patreon is pretty daggum good, getting what you pay for. And some of these things you see on the secondary market selling for large dollars. Some of them are cheap. But anyway, they're so cool. Some great authors, some great concepts, and some neat designs with great artists. And for my money, I'm staying. Whatever my tier is called. Brian James Freeman limited edition subscribers. I'm on. Unless the sky falls down and the money goes dry, I'm staying because I get cool stuff. I get my money's worth. It's enjoyable. Every now and then something shows up in the mailbox that I really, really dig. And so I recommend it. I vouch. Terrific vouches. Who's terrific? I don't know. Anyway, I got no more lies to tell, so thank you for your time. I do truly appreciate it. C'est la vie, baby. Doo-doo. I recently went to send somebody a chapbook at the post office. And when I walked up to the desk, I said, "This is a chapbook I need to ship, media mail." The postal clerk said, "What's a chapbook?" And I said, "It's a little book." She said, "Never heard of that before."